Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm Macy, and I'm so excited that you're joining us wherever you are listening in the world. If you're brand new here, I hope that the content is enjoyable for you and that you're able to take away some powerful lessons from the podcast. And if you're a returning listener, as always, so much gratitude to you and for you for sharing, telling your friends, leaving reviews, all of the things. I feel very blessed. I have the most amazing clients in my life. I have the most amazing listeners. You all reach out to me quite often, and it makes me just feel so much gratitude. I read the reviews that you all leave. I just really feel so full in being able to make a living, coaching and being able to bring this content to you. So I'm excited that you're here. And today I think is a long-awaited episode that people will be excited to listen to. We're going to be talking about men, women, and emotional unavailability. And I think that hopefully by the end of this episode, you will know more about masculine energy. You'll know more about feminine energy, how this shows up. You'll also know about why that emotional unavailability comes about, especially as it relates to men, because they tend to be more emotionally shut down. So we're going to talk about all of that. And whether you're a woman or a guy listening to this podcast, I hope that you have some clarity or takeaways, and that ultimately the goal is that if you're willing to listen to the information and you do take things away, that it just strengthens and improves or nourishes your relationships, whether it's an intimate relationship or a friendship or work-related relationships where you're, around coworkers that maybe feel hard to understand or get along with. I just hope that all in all, you understand yourself a little bit more and maybe the people around you, because when that happens, you're able to show up in more empathy, which is a skill of emotional intelligence. And if you're new here, that is the type of coach that I am. I'm an emotional intelligence life coach. So I help people basically build their self-awareness so that they can go create a life that feels really, really good to them. And I do that by means of strengthening the mindset and improving emotional intelligence skills. So I'm excited that you're here, and we are going to talk about this. But before we do, I wanted to make everyone aware of some things that are news that I think are important to know. So one of the exciting things that has kind of fallen in my lap in recent weeks was the opportunity to even apply for my coach, which if anybody is not aware, my coach is Stacey Bayman. And I started coaching with her originally 6 years ago when she was really more new in her business. I mean, she had maybe been coaching, I think, about a year and a half at that time. And her business was really small, and small being like $130,000 is what she had brought in at the time. And to be completely honest, I thought that was so powerful. I didn't know many women in my life, especially because I was, 24 years old. I didn't know many women in my life making that kind of money, especially entrepreneurs. So I just thought she was the bee's knees, making $130,000. It was pretty cool to watch. And, we coached for several years. She became a great friend of mine. And I have watched her build this empire of a coaching business. So when I started with her, she was a life and business coach, and she did a little bit of both. She primarily helped network marketers, and I was in network marketing. So that's kind of how I found her. I was introduced to her, I should say, because I didn't actually find her. She was introduced to me. And I hired her to help me in my network marketing business, only to realize I had a lot of life stuff that I had never looked at, even after 17 years of going to therapy. So she helped me so much, and so much of what I learned, throughout my experience of coaching with her is often things that I'm teaching lessons of within here of my own experiences with the things that I took away from being coached by her. And so I have so much respect for her. And was really exciting is about 2 weeks ago, I got a message from her chief operating officer, because now she is a multi-million-dollar business. It's been so cool to see her build this in the last 6 years. She's scaling, I think this year, to $20 million. Her business will probably bring in. And that's just really, really cool. Last year she brought in 10 million. So it's amazing to know that I watched her from when it was 130,000 to now 10 million plus. So anyways, I got this message that she wanted me to apply to one of her positions to coach her clients in basically her mid-level program where she helps coaches scale to $200,000 or more. And I'm honored. I felt a little bit pukey and throw-uppy. I felt excited that she even sees that I have the capacity to hold that space for her clients. And basically, I have my first interview because I'm going through the process like anybody else. I have my first interview Friday, and then I will go through a second interview if I get past that phase. And then after that, if I get past that phase, then there will be training and all of the things and starting. So all of this to say is that my availability is going to be changing a lot. I have, set aside the time to take care of my clients fully. They're my priority. My one-on-ones, my clients that are in the Equip Society, that's, such a big priority for me. But with this being said, I will be if that position opens up where I am offered a position, of course I'm going to take it. It's such a huge growth opportunity for me. It's only going to make me a stronger, better coach for my clients. They're going to benefit so much from me pushing myself out of my comfort zone to take on this role. So with that being said, I will be taking on clients from my coaches program, and that's going to look like probably 20 to 40 clients a week. And then my clients that I have myself. So I am going to have very limited availability for taking on any new one-on-one clients. With that being said, if that is something you've been considering, one-on-one, it is imperative that you schedule a consult ASAP if that's important to you to work one-on-one, because I have very limited spots for that. I haven't obviously been offered the position yet. I have obviously not started yet because of that. But if all plays out accordingly, it will probably be middle to late August that I take on that role. And at that point, my schedule is going to be really tight, which means I'm not going to be taking on any new one-on-one clients unless people that are currently my one-on-one clients give up their spot. So basically, if they give up their spot, I'll take new one-on-one clients. If they choose not to give up their spot, then basically my calendar is closed for one-on-one, and the only way that you will be able to work with me is through the Equip Society, which is still an awesome way to work together. So if you know that you want one-on-one coaching, it's time to schedule a consult and at least get your options available, so that way you know if you want to lock in that opportunity to work together one-on-one. I offer 3-month contracts, which is 12 sessions, or 6-month contracts, which is 24 sessions. On the consult call, we'll talk about pricing. We'll talk about what that looks like. We'll talk about all the options, even the Equip Society, and let you decide if either one sounds good. And so if that's something that you want to do, I just encourage you to do that as soon as possible because I'm not going to have space to take on a bunch of one-on-one clients once this position begins, assuming that it is, a possibility. So if you want to schedule a consult, you can do so at MacyRenee.com. As soon as you pull up the home page and you scroll a little bit, in the bottom right corner, you'll see a little box that says book a 60-minute consult. Click that, choose your day. We will talk. We'll figure out if any of the options look good to you. And if they do, great, we can get you going. If they don't, that's okay too. It's totally up to you. Okay. There's no pressure ever. It's just a conversation to see if moving forward is something you want to do. And if it's been on your mind, now is really a good time to do it before my schedule is like packed full. So anyways, okay, we're going to talk about, again, men and women and emotional unavailability. Now, the reason that this topic is coming about is because more and more I am just seeing clips on Instagram. I am hearing in conversations, I'm hearing on, client calls with their spouses or the person that they're dating, that there's just so little emotional availability. And especially I think whenever it comes to men tend to be less emotionally available just because of the way that society has taught a lot of parents to raise men. And so it's this societal conditioning and this conditioning that happens in parenting, from a really young age. And we don't understand quite the impact until we're adults and we're in relationships that are, maybe triggering or challenging, or certain topics come up and we can't fully communicate. And I think that that's probably the biggest rift in a lot of relationships, is the communication piece. But before we get into some of that emotional unavailability, what I think is important to cover first is the difference between masculine energy, feminine energy, and kind of deciphering like the difference between both. I think that maybe I've done a podcast about this in the past, but I want to cover it again. So masculine energy is very much a fix it, do it, handle it kind of energy. It's a protective energy. Now, the important thing to know about both energies, masculine and feminine, is that both men and women have a little bit of both within us, right? Like it's natural for a man to have both masculine and feminine, and it's natural for a woman to have both masculine and feminine energy. And both of them play an important part in creating balance in our life. But typically speaking, what tends to happen is, like, if you're looking at a couple that maybe has a good, strong balance within their relationship, the man holds a good amount of masculine, but has that feminine piece, like they're in tune with that feminine piece. And a woman has their feminine piece, but they're also in tune with their masculine. And they don't compete with one another, right? The energies are not competing with one another. So the masculine energy is like fix it, do it, handle it, protect, solutions, logistics, all of the things like that. So the way that this will show up a lot of times in your relationships, it's like if something feels like it goes wrong, it's the I'm going to handle it energy. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make sure to fix it. I'm going to be the one to solve it. I'm going to step up and be whatever I need to be in order for it to get done. And so it's this very powerful energy, and it's great. Okay. Whenever it's healthy and in balance, it's great. Now, looking at feminine energy is more so flowy. It's very trusting. It's very, I'm going to lean into this. I'm going to, kind of go with the ebbs and flows of life. I'm going to feel the feelings. I am going to basically let go and let God and know that everything's going to be cool and together. And I don't need to be in this powerful kind of like fix it energy. It's really the opposite kind of. It's like one energy is very much, I'm going to take control and figure it out. And the other energy is like, I'm going to release control and just let things be because I trust that they're going to work out. So typically what happens a lot of times, okay, is in relationships, it becomes a battle of energies because with both parties, men and women, or, whatever your partner, right? Whoever it is, it doesn't necessarily have to be a man and a woman, but it's like there will be competition of energies rather than this beautiful flow where it works together. And what this will look like a lot of times is women get into masculine energy of I'm going to fix it, I'm going to handle it, I'm going to do it. The way this shows up is like I'm going to do the dishes and I'm going to vacuum and I'm going to, make the lunches for the kids and I'm going to bathe them and I'm going to send them off to school and I'm going to make sure that they get on the bus and I'm going to go to work and I'm going to do all of these things. And you've got this huge to-do list of everything that you need to get done, and you get it done, but you're exhausted, and maybe like your significant other comes home and they just kind of plop down on the couch, and that's the routine that you're now in. And you feel yourself becoming resentful. You feel yourself wanting more help. But then it's like if they offer to help or you ask for their help, then you might notice that if they don't do it in the way that you expect, you just take it over altogether. You're like, never mind, I'll do it. You don't do it right. You're doing it wrong. Get out of my way. Like you're less helpful than helpful. Never mind. Why did I even ask you? Or it's snarky comments like, yeah, sure, just lay on the couch. Like, thanks for the help. You know what I mean? And it starts this whole argument. So women, a lot of times, will get into this masculine energy. And there's a few reasons why this happens. Maybe you've had trauma in your childhood. Maybe you watched your mom be in masculine energy a lot, and that was the relationship that her and your father had, or stepfather, or whatever parental male figure you had, or masculine figure that you had. You watched it be kind of a battle, and your mom took charge, or maybe your mom was a single mom, and you watched her get everything done because she had to. Or maybe it's just because you are an anxious personality or struggle with anxiety, and so you like feeling in control. So women will inadvertently take on a masculine energy, which is very much their, the energy of fix it, do it, I'll handle it, I'll figure it out. It's no big deal. I've got it. I don't need help. Get out of my way. I've got it. Okay. And it's not a bad thing for women to have some masculine energy. It gets shit done. However, it's not the natural energy we're meant to be in 24/7. So whenever you get into this energy, here's what I want you to know. If you're taking on, let's say you're in a relationship, if you're taking on the bulk of the masculine, it is automatic that your partner will be in the opposite energy. So if you're like holding 90% of the masculine, then that only leaves 10% available to your partner. So they are going to look like 90% more feminine energy. And this shows up a lot. This is probably one of the top 10, if not top 5 things that I end up coaching my clients on, because I end up coaching a lot of women who are super freaking frustrated with their husband, with their boyfriend, with their partner, on the fact that they're doing it all, they're handling it all, they're burnt out, they're tired. They try to ask for help, but then they feel like their partner's not going to do it right if they ask for help. Like releasing the control feels like a daunting task. And what they want the romance. They want to feel like their partner can take care of them. They want to feel, they want to feel like the mushy gushy kind of like love story kind of vibes, but they're not experiencing that from their partner. And what I tell them a lot of times, you're not experiencing that from your partner because you're living in masculine energy. And when you're taking the bulk of it, they're going to be in the opposite. That's how it works. It's like a yin and yang. Okay. You can't be both. You can't have both. You can have it 50-50, right? But if you're taking on this energy at 70%, 80%, 90%, then you're leaving very little for them to step up and take on that role for themselves. Okay. So this is really important, and this is where a lot of women find themselves at, because they're wanting to relax. They're watching their significant other lay on the couch and watch football or basketball or golf or whatever shows that they like. And they start feeling resentful. They're like, God, it must be nice to be able to like just come home from work and lay on the couch and not feel like you have to jump in and do all the things for the kids and be asked a million questions and all of the things. And so they start to get resentful. And I'm like, well, you're holding all the masculine energy. What do you expect? If you're holding it all, they're going to be in feminine. And feminine looks like flow and ease and trust that it's going to get done and it's all okay. And you're robbing them of their opportunity to step into the masculine. And so really it starts with a lot of women to be able to get into their feminine energy so that men can come back, or your partner can come back in masculine energy if that's what you desire. Okay? So really important. Now, if this feels very over your head, don't worry. That's normal. This is something that I coach my clients on over multiple sessions. So you're not going to maybe understand it all or be able to digest all of it in one podcast episode. It's something where real life examples of what's showing up in your life are very helpful to coach on, because then you start to see like exactly how it's playing out in your life. So give yourself some grace if you're listening to this and it's just feeling like a lot to take in, okay? If for some reason you want more on this and you want to learn more about it, then reach out for a consult, okay? So let's talk about the masculine now, or more of the feminine. And how this kind of shows up in men, right? They feel like, okay, if the masculine's taken, I'm going to be in more feminine energy. I'm going to be in the, it's all taken care of. I don't have a lot to worry about. She seems to have it. It's not a big deal. Like, I'm just going to trust. I'm just going to let them come to me. And, and it feels really good to them. Feminine energy feels really freaking amazing, because again, it's kind of like that let go, let God kind of thing. And it's where women truly energetically desire to be, but it means releasing a lot of control. And if you're a control freak and you're very anxious, and trust me, you're speaking to the queen of this. Years ago, I had such a hard time with this. I was in masculine energy a lot of times in my relationship. Like, I would get told all the time, this is something you'll hear a lot from your partner if you're in masculine. This is like knowing you're in masculine 101. If your partner is like, I don't need a mother, I have one. I don't need you to mom me, I have a mom. Like, if that's coming out of their mouth, then girlfriend, you're in masculine energy. As much as that is like sucky to hear, it used to drive me crazy, but it's so true, because it was like, I want your help, but like, I want you to unload the dishwasher to be able to help me so I feel less stressed. And then I'd open the dishwasher and I would be like, oh my God, like why is the dishwasher looking like this? And I would just make a mountain out of a molehill. And what we do is we tend to kind of attack, our partner for not doing it right, not doing it to our standard, not doing it the way that our control freak self would do it. And then they feel defeat because they tried to pull up their masculine energy and be of assistance and fix it and do it and handle it. But then we demasculinize them by coming in and being like, I'll fix it, I'll handle it, I'll do it. You don't know how to do anything right. You're not doing it the way it makes me feel happy. Back off, go back to watching TV, I'll do it. So then there's that feeling of like resentment, and that feeling of like, here's another thing that I have to do if I want it done right. And of course, like, they're not able to help me. And so we really, as women, have to be mindful of this. Now, with this being said, it is absolutely possible to get out of this masculine energy and let your partner have it back. But that means releasing it and acknowledging when they are in masculine energy and when they're trying to fix something. So I'll give you an example of this. It was like the other day. I was in my head about something that had come up and I hadn't fully processed it yet. I tend to try not to talk about things unless I fully process them, because again, when emotions are high, intelligence is low. So if you are highly reactive and emotional and you haven't processed something before you talk about it, you tend to react in a way that's not going to make you so happy later, because it's not like you didn't You didn't actually think it through first, okay? You have little impulse control. And my husband was talking to me about something, but I was in a different zone. Like my brain was in a totally different zone. I was on a different planet, I guess you could say. And he was like, I feel like you're not answering. And I was like, sorry, my head's like totally in a different place. Yeah, my head's in a totally different place. And he was like, well, where's your head? And I hesitated for a second, but then I was like, well, I'm thinking about this, and this. And immediately he went into his masculine fix-it energy. And this is what guys do, right? It's like, and this is how we're going to transition into like some emotional unavailability in a way. But it's very much like he went in on fixing my problem. Like I was trying to just process the problem and be in feminine energy of like, okay, I don't need to figure it out. I just need to trust that it's going to happen. I need to trust like that all of this is going to pan out the way that it needs to. And, you know, it's under control. And so that's where my brain was like more in feminine, because I have to work a lot harder to be in feminine energy than masculine energy. I didn't have my father growing up. And I lived with my grandparents, and my papa was a lot of times in more feminine energy because my grandma was this very strong masculine energy force. Like she's the one who took care of writing out the bills and paying the bills and cleaning the house and cooking dinner and doing all the tasks, and they both worked. And so I watched my papa, you know, come in with ease and sit down on the couch and just chill and then be fed and served and all of the things like a queen. And he got used to being in that energy. And it's like when he would try to help and be more masculine, my grandma would just shut it down. And she was constantly resentful and like, God, he doesn't help me, or he doesn't dust right, or he doesn't clean the toilet right, or he tries to sweep and vacuum, but he always misses spots. And it was just like so demasculinizing. I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but it was just like, I watched that throughout childhood. And I think that between not having my own father in my life and then watching that be the dynamic between my mom and papa growing up, it was very natural for me to be in masculine. So my husband is very much, he's very masculine and he takes on that energy. And so in the beginning of our relationship, it was like battle of the energies. Like he just wanted me to be able to be in feminine energy, you know, without obviously knowing this lingo and language. And so a lot of our fights would be because I couldn't release control. Like in order to feel safe, I would just show up in all of this masculine, tough energy. And also masculine, if unaware, can show up as emotional unavailability. And if you think about it, for 17 years going to therapy, I was very much in a victim mentality. It was everybody else's fault. I didn't like feeling my feelings. I didn't like crying. I didn't enjoy anything that had to do with emotions, and therefore I was emotionally unavailable. So I was almost the toxic masculine energy because like masculine energy in balance is being emotionally aware, of being emotionally available, being emotionally intelligent. And I didn't have that back then. So a lot of our fights were around the battle of our masculine energies and not knowing how to communicate because we both didn't have the level of emotional intelligence that we have now. So all of this to say, when this happened a few days ago, I was trying to be in my feminine and not go into like fix it energy and like frantic energy of like, I've got to fix this. I've got to do this. I've got to, be in control of this. Like I was just trying to like process and trust that it was all going to work itself out. So when he asked me and I told him, I think in my brain, I was expecting for just the space to be held to express, but I didn't ask for that because I had not yet processed. So I didn't say like, hey, okay, I'm going to tell you what's going on, but I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. So because I didn't say that and preface with that, masculine energy immediately came out of him and he was like trying to fix it, trying to solve it, trying to do all these things. And then I found myself completely agitated because I was like, no, I don't, and I remember saying to him, like, I don't want you to fix it. I don't want you to fix it. Like, I just needed to express it. I just need to listen. Like, I just need you to listen. Like, I don't want you to fix it. And that comes with emotional awareness too, right? Because when you as a human, whether you're taking on the feminine or the masculine, holding space is a very emotionally available energy to be in. It's a very emotionally aware, intelligent place to be in. And in order to hold it in a very beautiful way, you have to be aware of it. So with that being said, if you're not asking for it or the person doesn't know how to give it, it will sometimes lead into this big blowout argument, because it's like one energy is trying to fix it and control it and make it better, and the other energy is like, no, I'm just trying to process and talk about it. And so with that being said, I'm going to transition now into that emotional unavailability, and especially this shows up a lot of times in men, but it shows up in women too, because as I said, I was very emotionally unavailable. The struggles that my husband and I have ever had in our relationships, we're high school sweethearts. We've been together, I think, almost 13 years. Any struggles that we've had have been because of unhealed trauma and unprocessed emotions. So there are a lot of people walking around in the world with unprocessed, unhealed emotions and traumas. That's the fact of the matter. And it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. If you grew up in a childhood home where there was no self-awareness practice, it doesn't matter if it's a huge trauma or little tiny things, you were conditioned to be brought up in a certain way. And what a lot of times happens, and it's still happening today, and I saw it all the time, because before I was a coach, if you're brand new here, I was a pediatric occupational therapist. I worked with birth to 3 population, and I worked inside the home. So in a position called early intervention, which every state in the U.S. has for sure. And within this program, you go into the homes of families of all different backgrounds, all different belief systems, all different socioeconomic backgrounds, all different cultures and nationalities and all of the things. And you help their child developmentally, okay? And so what I took from that was seeing the upbringing of over 350 families, right? 350 different personalities, different ways to love your child and raise your child and bring them up and teach them and nurture them, and you discipline them. And I learned so much. And, most of the time it was a positive experience, but every now and then I would be in a position where I would see exactly why we're shaped the way that we're shaped. And for a lot of times, I would witness with little boys in particular, if they started crying, if they became hurt, like let's say they hit their head or they fell down, and they're practicing walking or crawling or playing with a toy or whatever's happening. It's interesting because whether it was mom or dad or grandparents or daycare teachers or whatever, if a little girl fell, if she started crying, a lot of times it was the reaction was to pick them up, to hold them, to tell them, it's okay, I'm going to help you. It was very nurturing. And then for little boys, it was like, get up, you're tough. Get up, don't cry. Oh, you're crying like a little girl. Like, seriously, these are things that people say. And you might even be guilty of saying some of them. Like, stop crying, you're not a little girl, or stop crying, you're acting like a baby, or you're a boy, you're tough, boys don't cry, things like that. And what we don't always realize is that what your child takes in and hears and sees and experiences the first 7 years of life become their hardware in their brain. That becomes their primary conditioning, their primary beliefs, why they will likely be wired the way that they are. And unless awareness, like self-awareness, ever becomes something that they're interested in, that programming will stick with them forever unless they make a conscious decision to reprogram themselves. Okay, that's why not everybody will enjoy this podcast. It will be for the people who want to reprogram their hardware. Okay, so that's something that's really important. And with young boys growing up, those first 7 years of life, oftentimes they're told they shouldn't cry. It's girly. It's them being a crybaby. Boys should be tough. Boys don't cry. Boys don't blah, 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 blah. What we're doing, because I don't always feel like this is intentional, but more societal conditioning, what we're doing is teaching men to be emotionally unavailable. Because the only way a man can actually be emotionally available to hold space for other people, the way that we crave, especially as women a lot of times, is if they know how to feel their emotions. And if you talk to a lot of men, first of all, look at most men and see if they will cry in front of you. How many of you guys have a man in your life that will just cry openly and not like hide themselves or do it in secret or run off? Like, that's something I even have to like really constantly encourage my husband to do. If he says like, gosh, like if something makes him feel emotional, it's so hard to get him to actually like just let himself have that moment. It's like, I don't want to. No, I'm not going to cry. Like, that's so ridiculous. And I'm like, no, like don't trap it in your body. You need to feel it. But you can see all of the shame and conditioning that has happened. Like, my husband grew up playing football, basically from the time he was like, I think like 4 years old or something like that, all the way up until like right at college. He had to stop in college. And when he tells me stories all the time, like the coaches being like, stop being a little girl, stop crying, crying's for babies, like we're not going to get emotional. And just like all of these beliefs around what it meant for a boy or a young man to cry. And so as women, we often wonder like why our partners won't talk to us, or, because I think women tend to be a little bit more emotionally aware anyways, because it's not this bad thing it's an expectation that girls are going to be emotional, which is another societal kind of conditioning, right? Like, oh, it's expected of a girl to be like overly dramatic, overly emotional. Okay, rather than just letting kids in general feel their emotions, there's always this weird label to it. Like, oh, girls, it's acceptable because they're dramatic and it's, they get so emotional and their hormones and all of the things. And then for guys, it's like, it's just not acceptable. Like, you need to stop being so emotional about things. And I see this a lot in business now. As a business owner, whenever I am around men in business, it's like there's no room for emotions. They're like, nope, you have to stay focused on your goals. There's no time for crying. It's that masculine, fix it, do it, be in it energy. But here is what I want to offer you. Your power comes from being able to have a beautiful balance of both. That is the message for both men and women. To have strong relationships with your partner, you need to be able to recognize when you're in masculine fix-it energy versus when you're in feminine, like let them have their moment kind of feelings, right? So what this would look like in a relationship, whether the woman's taking on a lot of masculine or the man's taking on a lot of masculine, or, her partner in general, like however your relationship looks, it's like knowing to ask the question, do you want me to listen, or do you want me to try and help you fix it? Okay, that's one step in better communicating with this masculine and feminine balance of energy that all of us have. It's really figuring out, like, when your partner wants to talk, sometimes they want to talk because they're just trying to process their emotions out loud, because they just need someone to listen. And if you're emotionally unavailable, that means that you don't have the self-awareness. You automatically feel attacked, or you feel like you have to fix it, or you start making it like it's your fault. Like if for some reason, like someone comes to you and they say, hey, this thing really bothered me, what tends to happen if we're not emotionally intelligent or self-aware is we automatically take it as an attack against us. You know what I mean? Instead of just being like, okay, let me just listen and hear them out. And maybe they're not even asking for me to fix it. Maybe they're just asking for me to listen. And if you don't know, it's okay to ask. That's practicing more emotional availability and holding space, okay? Because it depending on what energy you tend to fall in the most, your reaction may be, I want to fix this for them. I want to make sure that they don't feel this way. I want to make sure blah, blah, blah. And we'll talk about that in another podcast too. I think I have an episode about like wanting to fix other people's emotions, but I think it would probably be good to revisit that and talk about like why it's hard to hold space for other people's real raw emotions. So we'll do that. But it's really important to get in the habit of like asking what people need, because they don't always need you to fix it. Sometimes they just need you to listen. And a lot of times that's what's happening for women, is they just want the space to like, have someone listen and understand like maybe what they're going through and just hear them out. And the frustration comes from whenever someone's trying to fix it, or the frustration comes from whenever you're like wanting someone to fix it, and maybe they're in so much feminine energy, they're like not able to understand that you're looking for a solution. So communication is going to be a huge part of this. Another thing is just recognizing, again, what energy do you tend to fall in? Ladies, if you're falling in the masculine energy, but you're craving a relationship where your man is taking charge, making more decisions, helping you out with more things, you've got to release the reins. And if you don't know where to begin with that, highly recommend reaching out for a consult. Okay, so we can kind of discuss what's going to be most helpful, because that's a practice. That's not something that just happens like a light switch. I mean, some of my clients and I have been working on it for a while, and they're still learning how to lean into that because they've been used to being in the masculine for forever. And as you release that masculine, then you offer up the opportunity for them to take more of it so that you can lean into more of that feminine energy. Another thing is, whenever you're doing this work and you're practicing more self-awareness, a lot of times it automatically invites your partner to kind of come along, right? They see the changes in you. Maybe they even see changes in themselves. And it opens up the space for them to become more emotionally available. Like when you're learning how to hold space for them, when you're learning how to communicate, when you're learning all of these skills, you create a safer place within your relationship for everybody to land. Your kids, your partner, the people that you're interacting with. So this work is a ripple effect. It's not just for you. It really does impact the people that you're around, because you start handling your life so much more different. Okay. So I really just want to encourage you to look at where maybe you're being emotionally unavailable, and know that emotional unavailability is a lot of times this wall that we put up because we're not feeling our emotions. And, men, if you're listening to this, it's not a bad thing to process and feel your emotions. In fact, it's absolutely necessary, especially if you want to have a really strong, if you want to have really good health, right? And not stress yourself out internally where you're preparing your body for sickness and disease and all of the things. You have to be willing to process your emotions, feel your emotions. Ask yourself too why you feel the shame and maybe hiding emotions or feeling like you can't talk about them. Like look at the history of where that comes from. Because if you even revisit the past of like, well, my dad was, really tough about that, or my dad was not in my life, or I was told, you're being a wuss, or you're being a little girl or whatever. If you look at that past of why you even are operating in that way, or who told you it was wrong, I just want you to be hyper aware of that. And if that even feels good to you, and if it does, why, right? And if it doesn't, what would it take for you to open yourself up a little bit more? Like, what are you afraid will happen if you open up a little bit more? What are you afraid of? Because a lot of times it's like there's resistance to feel those emotions. Why? What are you afraid will happen? What are you afraid you'll see? What are you afraid somebody will think, right? Because then that's all focused on other people. And then you're living your life in such a way that's not fully authentic. If you feel like you have to suppress your emotions because society conditioning says it's wrong, and because you think other people will think you're weak or that you're less of a man or whatever, you need to question all of that, right? You need to just be super hyper aware of your brain, just like I do with my clients, and I coach, all women right now. But it's like, yeah, we always get curious with our thoughts of like, why is that even there? And is it actually serving me? And I can tell you that with emotions that are suppressed for a long amount of time, it's never, ever serving you. It may feel like it is on the surface because you might feel like I'm tough and I can get anything done and I figure things out, but it doesn't help you reach it doesn't help you get to the peak of the mountain as fast. Like, I'm not saying you can't get to the peak of the mountain, but if you're wanting to really climb the mountains and get to the peak and experience all the things that life has to offer, you have to be willing to ride the ebbs and flow of all the emotional experiences. Because if you're not unwilling to feel anything, there will be nothing you're unwilling to do or nothing you're unwilling to accomplish. So I hope that this episode helps you kind of understand a little bit more about masculine energy, feminine energy, emotional unavailability, how this shows up in men and women, because it can happen in women too. I was a product of that, like suppressing everything, being the tough one. Like, I don't need anybody. I'm going to handle everything on my own. I don't need to feel my emotions. That would be, considered weak and all of the things, because I was in masculine energy, right? And so it's taken 6 years of me really doing a lot of intentional work to rewire and get more in feminine energy so that I can even show up in and create a healthier relationship with my husband. And he has to be able to tap into feminine energy to hold space for me whenever we're trying to communicate or talk things out, or if he's wanting to practice more empathy or more awareness. Like, it's so beneficial that we as partners know how to balance both the masculine and feminine, know how to shift into whichever one we need at whatever time, and know how to balance it within our relationship. And if you're struggling in your relationship and you're, kind of butting heads all the time and arguing all the time, or feeling misunderstood, or like you don't have a lot of help, there's probably a misalignment in that. And you can't always change your partner, right? Like, you really can't change anyone. So the work starts with you, and that is where I would tell you to focus with you first. Don't try to change other people. Start with yourself first. If you need any help with this, if I can help you in any way, go to MaceyRenee.com, schedule a 60-minute consult. We will chat. We'll figure out what's going, to be the best option for you. And again, because of what I have coming up and approaching soon, do it sooner rather than later, because my one-on-one spots are going to be very, very limited. And the only option to be able to work with me will have to be in a group setting in the Equip Society. So if that is something that you're interested in, be sure to reach out. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.